Implausible Nature now has dice. That's right, you can get these awesome D6s made by our partner Baron of Dice. These custom dice have the Implausible Nature logo on the six side and also come with square corners, which means they will roll more evenly than rounded corner dice. Head on over to baronofdice.com and use discount code IN40K to get a discount on your order and support us at the same time. Check out his full collection of dice for all your gaming needs with the link down in the description.
Welcome to Implausible Nature, your home for all things Black Templar. On today's video, we are talking about the brand new, huge update for the balanced data slate. The MFM dropped. GW dropped like 13 documents for this. And there are some really big changes for Space Marines in the balanced data slate. Some tweaks in the MFM, a couple of other small things, and some other documents. They also gave Space Marines a new detachment, which we don't care about because it's all about witches. The only thing witches are good for is burning.
Let's be honest, though, it's very good. So
So
you'll see it.
yeah. So let's get right into it, guys. Let's talk about the
Yeah.
balanced data slate. As you can see here, a couple of big core rule changes. So let's read into that. So stratagems that allow a closer setup range. If a stratagem has an effect that allows a targeted unit to be set up more than 3 inches horizontally away from all enemy models or units, for example, Cosmic Precision, etc., Inceptors, one of these. That part of the effect is changed to say more than 6 inches horizontally away. So this is a pretty big change, but honestly, virtually every army that has a codex and some that don't have a codex have either a strat or an ability or a unit that can do this. So this is a pretty big change that really kind of allows us to not feel like we have to run infiltrators. We didn't really rely on this as much as Space Marine players. Inceptors are really the only thing that can do it. So it's not as much of an impact for us as far as our gameplay, but it does impact our opponents. So pretty significant. Bob, what do you think about this change?
Yeah, I think it makes it a little bit even. It takes the ability of having to guard a little bit better. It makes screening out your deployment zone a lot easier now because it's the 6 inches instead of the 3 inches, and you're not forced into the infiltrators because, like Alex said, they were very good at doing that and such, but they didn't really contribute to your battle other than holding an objective, really. So yeah, we kind of like this one. We only had the Inceptors to really play that little piece of the game. And I think that having that 6 inches, I think, is healthy for the game in general. Yeah, it's going to nerf some other armies that it was much more prevalent in. But I think in general, this is a good change. So
Yeah, so agreed. So let's check out the next one. This is something that's a much bigger impact for us. Stratagems that worsen armor penetration. If a stratagem has an effect that says until the end of the phase, each time an attack targets your unit, worsen the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. For example, Armor of Contempt, and a bunch of other things from other armies. That effect is changed to say until the attacking unit has finished making its attacks. Each time an attack targets your unit, worsen the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. So this is a pretty significant nerf. It goes from AOC using basically the whole rest of the phase getting that to only that one unit. So pretty significant nerf here. This is kind of unfortunate for Space Marines, and definitely weakens us a little bit.
So I think this makes it so that this is basically without it's saying it in the actual stratagem that it is a close combat only detachment or a stratagem. The reason is when you're in close combat, you're typically only fighting one unit, so you are going to have that one unit that you're going to only have to deal with. Um, as far as the AP goes, and if you're getting shot, you're going to have to pick and choose. They're like, which one potentially could shoot at me? And if you wait too long, maybe you're going to get the timing wrong, or maybe they're not going to shoot at you at all. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to pick the correct unit, because once that unit's done shooting at you, it goes away, and you could have five other units shooting at that one squad of yours. So I don't think it's going to be nearly as effective in the shooting phase anymore. I think you really need to save it for close combat, where you know that you're not going to kill your opponent on the charge and you might get slapped back, or you get charged in general. So this is going to be a defensive, uh, close combat stratagem, honestly. So
Yeah, the other thing too is we have several other stratagems that we can use in the shooting phase. Things like go to ground that gives you the benefit of cover. There are several of our units that have smoke. Smoke is really good. It gives them a -1 to hit and the benefit of cover. So as long as you're not, worrying, if you're not worrying about where you are, maybe you're stuck out in the open. It gives you the ability to essentially get that same benefit and then some potentially. Um, so some pretty good, uh, alternative stratagems that we can still use in the shooting phase. All right, so let's move along here. And as we scroll through, you can see there's a lot of red. Sisters got nerfed. We got Adeptus Custodes, their bikes got quite a bit better, which nobody liked. So maybe now they'll like their bikes. I think we might see some more bikes from them. Scroll on down here. All right, so Black Templars, couple of changes, relatively minor ones. The Repulsor Executioner now can carry 7 Adeptus Astartes infantry models, so bumping that up, which is nice. And then Crusader Squad melee weapons change armor penetration characteristic of combat knife to -1. We don't really care about that because that's the firstborn unit and they're terrible anyway. I've already seen some people ask, oh, what about the Primaris ones? Well, the Primaris ones don't have combat knives. They have chainswords and 5 attacks at that. So I'll keep my 5 attack chainswords. Thank you very much. Scrolling on down here, Dark Angels got some buffs to a couple of their things. Gene Stealer cults got kneecapped because they were just ridiculous. Continuing on, Necrons got a couple of changes as well. And finally, at last, we come to Space Marines. So first up is Oath of Moment. If your army faction is Adeptus Astartes, blah, 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 it's the same wording except for there's now a second bullet point that says if your army does not include one or more units with the Black Templars, Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Death Watch, or Space Wolves keywords, add 1 to the wound roll as well. So Codex Marines got better oath, and which we don't get. So now, something that has already come up online, people have already been talking about it, and I want to clarify. It says if your army does not include 1 or more units with Black Templars, etc., keywords. Taking the Righteous Crusader detachment does not grant the Black Templar keywords. So what that technically means is if you are not running any of our unique units or characters, including the tanks, in Righteous Crusaders, theoretically, you can get this +1 to wound. To be honest, I don't think that it is worth giving up Primaris Crusader squads, Sword Brethren, our special characters, for +1 to wound versus only the oath target. It'd be one thing if it was +1 to wound for the whole army all the time, but it's definitely not. It's just versus that one target. I don't think that that is worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the draw if you don't want to have special characters. Okay, no special characters, but losing Primaris Crusader squads or Castellans, Marshals, and Sword Brethren as well, that's that's kind of a stretch too far for me. I know that you can still run Black Templars. It's fine and get that, but add one to the rune roll for one unit, losing those other units, not for me. And honestly, we're probably going to be gaining something that makes up for it, so that's not even.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So it's one of those things. I don't think it's worth it. I think we're gonna stick with our units, and keep on rolling, adapt as we do. So let's move on. A Gladius Task Force Detachment. The Fire Discipline Enhancement got absolutely kneecapped here. It lost the sustained 5 up on crit hits. So get a crit hit on 5 up. Now you can re-roll advance rolls made for that unit while in the Dev Doctrine, which is atrociously bad by comparison. So that combo is dead, basically. So moving along, we've got the Captain in Gravis armor. He gets a little pip of damage, a bonus, and you'll see why in just a second. We've got Darneth Lysander among basically all the other non-Ultramarine chapter master special characters. All got a really nice buff, and they well, except for salamanders too, which is great because none of these characters were being taken. So yeah, nice buff for them, not relevant to us. What is relevant to us is heavy intercessor squads. They went from damage 1 to damage 2 on their heavy bolt rifle, and their heavy bolter went to a ballistic skill 3 plus instead of 4 plus. So pretty significant change for these guys. How do you feel about this change for them, Bob?
So we'll get into in a second on their points. So they were compensated in points to make up for this, but I think it actually defines the heavy intercessors in a troop slot, a battle line slot that was really all doing the same thing. So intercessors did the same thing. Heavy intercessors did the same thing. They're all damage one. They're all just kill your chaff. The only difference is these were more durable and longer range. The other ones were sticky. Uh, I think this actually gives you the ability to take out uh, base, basically two wound models now. While it is AP2 and not that great, you can still take off something incidentally from long range. So I think that's a good change. It changes the role of the heavy intercessor, and I think they might actually be worthwhile now in that role.
Yeah, I know some folks were using them as just like here's a durable unit to stick behind cover for the end of at the in my deployment zone. Now they actually have some potential to deal some good damage. All right, so next up we have the Infernus squad got a buff to their Pyroblasters, a nice pip of AP, which they probably should have always had. How do you feel about this? Do you feel like they're worth taking now?
Yeah, I think it's possible in the right detachment. I probably still won't take them in Righteous Zeal because there's not anything that really uh, synergizes with them. But I do like them in Firestorm.
Yeah, I think they still work pretty well in
Yep.
Firestorm if we're taking them there. All right, so moving along, Inceptors got some change. They now have their ability nerfed to 6 inches, just like everything else, except they actually errated it in their data sheet. And then the Infernus got another nice little ability as well. Their Battle Shock test is now subtracting 1 from that test. So a couple of changes there. A little nerf for the Inceptors, but a nice change again for the Infernus unit. So moving on to an ability I'm pretty excited about. The Intercessor Squad get a whole second ability, so they have Sticky, and now they get target elimination. Each time this unit is selected to shoot, it can use this ability. Almost surprised it's not once per game, but I'm really happy that it's each time you shoot. And then if it does, until the end of the phase, add 2 to the characteristics of bolt rifles equipped by models in this unit, and you can only select one enemy unit as the target of all of this unit's attack. So no split fire when you do this, but doubling their shots, going from 2 to 4, and they have assault and heavy already. I think this makes intercessors definitely worth taking in most of our lists now. What do you think?
Yeah, well, they were worth taking before, but now this is just a free a free ability that they get that now they can participate in damage because like I mentioned before, they just really were sitting in the chaff killing role and they didn't do it well unless you were a 10-man squad and you weren't taking them in a 10-man squad because you really just want them for sticky and potentially sticky something else. Now they can actually at a 5-man do some damage to a chaff unit. You might actually even almost kill uh, a cultist unit, a just basic unit of infantry guard, what have you. So you're only going to kill like maybe one and a half, two Marines at most with the 20 attacks if they fail and they're not in cover. But
Yeah, they weren't really designed for killing Marines anyway. If you're shooting them at Marines, uh, I'm uh, I'm probably either desperate or trying to kill the last guy of a squad. That's not what they're really there for. They're there for shooting chaff, and I think they're quite good at that now. Up next, an interesting change here to the Outriders. They lost Turbo Boost, which was just kind of a nothing ability, and instead gained Thunderous Impact. Each time a model in this unit makes a melee attack, if this unit made a charge move, improve the strength and damage characteristic of that attack by 1. So now they are Strength 5, AP 1, Damage 2 chainswords, and Blood Angels players everywhere are scrambling to buy as many Outriders as they possibly can. I think this is an interesting change. Do you think, though, that it benefits us, Bob?
yeah, I mean, it makes them very interesting. It's a very interesting take on these guys. But if you're playing on GW terrain, it is very difficult still to maneuver those bases around with these things. You got to remember they changed the rules for pivots, and you're going to take a 2-inch chain. Or yeah, yeah, you're right. It's one with them, but even that the 1 inch, and then you still can't go through the ruins. You have to go through the non the wall portions of it. It's hard to maneuver them around. Yeah. So yes. I think it's very interesting. I think it makes them much better. They're basically each packing multiple uh, heavy bolters, but it's it's you know
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So, moving on. Now we are looking at a nice change here to the Predator Annihilator. Instead of rerolling ones on the damage roll, you can just reroll the damage roll. So, really nice change for them. As you'll see later, they did not go up in points. So, really good change, a straight up buff for them. And I think Predators could
Oh yeah.
be become a staple in our lists. What do you think?
Oh yeah. This is a very important change, I think, for us, especially since we are not going to be in probably Gladius anymore and Righteous Crusader. So 170 points is a lot for a Lancer now. 130 points is what as the time of recording is what the Annihilator is. So if you consider that you have Ultra Moment available potentially on something you need to kill. So you're going to get rerolls anyway. So you have four shots. You have the two shots from the Predator las cannon on top. You have the two las cannons on the sides that you're most likely taking. Because why not? Why would you not? And then you also have a Stormbolter and a Hunter Killer missile. So all of these shots that you have, five total shots in your first volley that you can fire at something that's a monster or vehicle, right? You're hitting on threes, which is decent. You can get the rerolls if you need to. Um, so you have that available. So let's just say you don't have rerolls. It's still a three up, so you're going to still get three of the five shots through. And then you have twin linked on your turret. So you get rerolls on those. And then whatever ones it's going to need probably a three because it's a higher strength than the ballistus has. Obviously, the Lancer has a higher strength on its shots, and it does have the rerolls. But you have ways to get the rerolls. If you have Lieutenant with the combi weapon, you can get reroll ones, so you can up the damage. And then you're just going to get rerolls on all the damage rolls that you get through on those damage or those vehicles. So you have to remember these are the las cannons are at least strength 12 and then 14 in the case of the turret, and then you also have 14 strength on the Hunter Killer missile. So you're going to be hitting on threes on basically every vehicle that's out there, and monsters potentially on twos. So,
Yeah, one quick correction. The turret is only one shot, a twin linked though.
oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay, so even still, you have uh, the twin linked.
All right, so
The next one is
moving along to our next one, Reaver Squad. Reaver's got several buffs here, and you heard it here first. Reavers are good. Yes, I said it. Reavers are good. They're not just good, they're great. And they're going to see competitive play. What's happening? Reavers are good? So let's get into it. So they changed their fearsome assault ability to add subtracting one from that test, from that battle shock test when they are within engagement range of one or more enemy units at the start of the fight phase. And then they changed their terror troop ability completely to while an enemy unit, excluding monsters and vehicles, is within 3 inches of one or more units with this ability, subtract 1 from the objective control characteristics of models in that enemy unit. This is huge. This is a huge change. You can basically, against OC1 models, just take the objective straight up from them. Really, really good ability with this. And that's not all. If we scroll ahead just a little bit here, down here, various combat blades and knives. Basically, all the combat knives and all the paired combat blades. So, Reavers, Phobos characters, scouts, anything cursors, anything with paired combat blades, all get now AP -1. So now Reavers finally have some AP in melee, and that changes their outlook along with their terror troop and fearsome assault abilities to be significantly better. So, Bob, tell us about your secret sauce that you've been itching to tell us.
my not so secret tech. All right, so on GW terrain, there is typically a ruin that's sitting right there in the center of the board, on either side of the deployment zones. Usually, it's straddling the objective that's in the center or right to either side of it. So what you can do is you can scout your fun little guys up into that unit. Deploy on the line, scout them up. You can move first turn. If you even better, you can make sure they get there because they don't have infiltrate. But if you have a lieutenant with uh, Reaver armor on them, so they extend that from 3 inches to 6 inches. So not only are you reducing the OC of that unit, by 1 with the 3 inches. Now you can advance up, scout up into that ruin, hide less than an inch from the wall, but so they cannot get into engagement range.
Yeah.
Surround that ruin on the inside next to the
So
objectives, and you
I
can
still
stay
prefer
unshootable,
them to.
extending that aura 6 inches outside of that ruin, and basically make it so that most of your opponent's units that are on that objective will not score and they can't touch your unit.
So I am still liking them better with the Phobos Lieutenant because he can deep strike with them. So you deep strike in, you can shoot, move d6 inches, and then charge whatever you need to get in there. And now you can throw Crusader's Wrath on them. It's worth doing this, and you're going to end up with a whole bunch of AP2 attacks
Yep.
with lethal hits, and it's can be pretty nasty
And precision.
and precision too.
You throw in Perdition's Edge on the lieutenant, then he has, the 1+ strength plus AP3 with precision, plus the extra attack if he is in suffer, which you probably won't be, but still. But nevertheless, if you are in accept any challenge, you can throw out a ridiculous amount of hits on something. So this is an excellent trap unit for what is I think that unit is, so it's 80 points each, so 160 plus 55 I think is what the lieutenant is. So you're just over 200 points. A unit that can kill characters very easily, in my opinion. You're packing essentially power swords. Um, with the Crusader's Wrath. And I mean,
Yeah, and something too that I want to point out is we've all seen my video on assault intercessors and how high I am on them on the jump pack guys. These guys they won't have some of the bonuses that unit gets, but they're still throwing out about the same number of essentially chainsword attacks, about 36 to 40 chainsword attacks with lethal and precision and AP2. So they can get pretty gross pretty fast with just a couple of buffs here for very cheap. So, and then the last thing that I want to note here too is with them, note that Terra Troops is, while the enemy unit is within 3 inches of one or more units with this ability, it's units, not models. So it's not like just the models that are within 3 inches. If you're 3 inches apart with your unit of Reivers and whatever's on their objective, you tag their whole unit and subtract 1. So that's really, really powerful. So that is, there's one last thing here, and that's Stern Guard got a buff. The buff that I said that they should have gotten for quite some time now. And that buff is you can reroll the wound roll instead of reroll ones. So I don't know if that makes them worth taking or not, but a nice little buff for Stern Guard. I think they're a neat unit. All right, so let's take a look on over here at the points changes for Space Marines. I'm not going to go alphabetical here. We're just going to kind of take a look. Infernus Squad went up 10 points. I don't know that was really necessary for just getting a pip of AP. I don't. That makes them harder to take, to be honest. So heavy intercessors here went up 15 points per 5. We've already kind of talked a little bit about them, and I think that they're worth taking, and we think that they're going to be something that you can throw out there to actually maybe do some damage to some lighter units. Inceptors went down 10 points for their nerf. Do you foresee us running more Inceptors, or still kind of the same?
I mean, they're still in the same role as they were before. They're just not going to be as janky, um, taking the objectives from people anymore. But they still utilize that for doing secondaries. Um, I probably wouldn't take them now, honestly, simply because we're not using probably Gladius anymore. Maybe Firestorm, but we have other things that we kind of want in Righteous Crusaders, and if we're not going to take an objective, that's kind of why we want it.
Yeah.
So
All right, so we don't care about Marnia's Calgar. Moving on here, our Reivers went up 5 points for all the amazing buffs that they got. Totally worth it. I'm
yeah,
totally fine with that change. Scout squads went up 5 points. A lot of people are complaining about this, but I think that they're still super viable and super worth it at 70 points. I'm okay with that change. So those are the points changes. We did have a couple of quick changes too to cover. In Black Templars, the repulsors went down, both of them, to match the 10-point change for the multi-melta. They were a little overcosted for whatever reason. So those are the points for Space Marines. Bob, how do you think we fared as far as points are concerned?
net neutral. Honestly, um, obviously they're mostly nerfs, but we gained in the data. Yeah, in the data slate. So overall, I think the big winners here are going to be Reivers. That was a real big win. Heavy intercessors, I think, is a win. Um, those are probably my biggest ones. Stern Guard are going to be popular in the new Librarius detachment, but we won't care about that. We will just have to learn how to deal with it. That unit is going to put out ridiculous amounts of mortal wounds, so you're going to have to know how to deal with them. Um, but other than that, those are going to be the two that we care about in Righteous Crusaders. In Furnace is going to be potential in a Firestorm if you're playing cheeky with the Firestorm, which some people are.
All right. So moving on to another change over in the index cards change is another change, sort of ish, to our fervent acclamation. So I just want to say, I told you so. I told you so. We talked about this in a video where my uh, logic chain jumping to, the conclusion that with the stratagem working, so should the enhancements. We kind of already knew this was coming from the World's, Championship FAQ, where they stated that they worked with GW on that and that these changes were coming. But here it is now official. Fervent acclamation works on both strats and on enhancements. Um, so yeah, very nice on that. That is a pretty huge buff for us to be able to do this. Both you can take multiple enhancements now and not be locked. Feel like you're locked into that particular vow. So really good change overall there for Black Templars. Next up, another key change here, Fire Overwatch. They have changed the wording so that it says now just after an enemy unit is set up or when an enemy unit starts or ends a normal, advance, or fallback move or declares a charge. So it's no longer when you start a charge move, which means you needed to have successfully made a charge move. It is when you declare it. So now we're kind of back to I'm charging up, I'm going to overwatch you, which could potentially affect your charge range and whether or not you make that charge. So definitely interesting change there. I think probably needed. There was a little bit of jank in the wording. Nothing could ever, declare Overwatch at the end of a charge move anyway. So they just removed that from there.
Yeah, you probably even missed this. But I think it is an important piece that just the clarification of the wording.
Yep. So yeah, so that's it, guys. Bob, final thoughts on all these changes?
I think Gladius is dead for Black Templars players. The detachment overall is still well balanced, but most of us were taking it with fire discipline in mind because we wanted to be able to interact in the shooting phase somehow rather than just being fully melee oriented that Righteous Crusaders is. Um, at the time of this recording, we do not have the detachment for the Black Templars for the Christmas, uh, but we will do that once we come up. But we're going under the assumption that Righteous Crusader is going to be better. So we're talking with that in mind. So we will most likely be in Righteous Crusader now rather than doing Gladius, even though there is buffs for melee in Gladius. I just losing the critical 5-up on Fire Discipline was a massive, massive nerf. It's 50% reduction in the extra bonuses that they get for that, and that's a ton. So those aggressors with your biologist is no longer out there, or potentially your um, plasma toting guys. Can't think of them right off the top of my head, but Hellblasters, thank you. So I think overall, I think we gained some cool pieces with the Reivers. I think that is a piece of the puzzle that Alex mentioned, but that is in actually the list I sent him um, on that. So I'm not taking the little cheat code, little skirmisher unit in the center of the board, but I think that is some interesting tech that you can consider, especially in MSU style builds. But that uh, having that lieutenant in Phobos armor um, dropping in and being able to move the D6 inches towards the unit to make that charge easier, and having the ability to do a ton of damage to characters or whatever it charges. They are only damage one, so that is the case. But if you're an accepting challenge, you're going to be pumping out a ton of extra hits. You're going to be lethal hitting. Um,
Yeah, Reavers really definitely have a place. They have a neat little movement ability as well, that everybody probably forgets about, the grapple launcher. They can move horizontally over any terrain feature, ignoring height, basically like old fly, which is pretty sweet. They obviously already walk through walls because they're infantry, but any other like large pipes or large other things that are not ruins walls, they can just essentially walk right through, which is really helps them with their movement ability. They just have a lot of tech in their kit now and are really great utility pieces, as well as potential damage dealers.
yeah, it's just with the toolkit that they have now, not just the combat blades, because the combat blade is up their damage significantly, but uh, now they're a really great trap unit. Taking that objective control down to down one is super huge. And the other thing that we didn't really talk about much is the ability to, since we're going to be doing that drop and charge, because they basically lumped tear troops into that that portion of the ability, is forcing that battle shock test. If you're going against a character unit and you get that battle shock off, then they can't use defensive stratagems to save them either. So that is something that we're not going to be able to put into the math, but that does impact their damage potential if they're trying to save that unit.
All right, guys. So that is the video. Reavers are here. They are good. You heard it first here on Implausible Nature. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Do all those YouTube algorithm things that helps us out tremendously, so we can continue making more great content for you guys, just like this. Let us know what you think down in the comments. How do you feel about the data sheet? Do you like Reavers? Do you think they are as good as we think they are? Let us know what you think down in the comments. Don't forget to check out our Patreon. A lot of great benefits with our Patreon, as well as our Discord channel. Supporting us on Patreon helps us tremendously, and Discord is a great way to connect with not only us but all of the people in our Black Templars community. A lot of great discussion going on there every day. So until next time, keep on crusading.